We will get started in just a moment. All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the briefing meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. We will begin this evening with an invocation delivered by Alderman Bruce Boyer.
If we could bow our heads, please. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to live in this community and in this great country. And we ask your blessings on our community as we get ready to celebrate our nation's birthday and open a time capsule soon that will reveal the wishes of our citizens decades ago. We ask that you bless each person in this room, all of which are motivated and dedicated to make this community a better place. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Alderman Boyer. Today is June 23rd, 2021. Again, it is our briefing meeting. Our regular meeting will be held next week on Tuesday, June 29th. There are several holiday events, as Alderman Boyer referenced. We have a Miss Mary's Parade this Saturday for the small children in our community here at Town Hall. And there's also festivities planned for the 4th of July, both on Saturday with the parade and other activities relating to the anniversary of our town, and also on Sunday with fireworks. So if you're interested in those things, please be sure to check for the details of those celebrations. All right, today we have a briefing on the June 29 regular meeting agenda. We begin with a proclamation declaring July as Parks and Recreation Month. And we do have several public hearings. The public hearings are related to text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinances. There's a new state statute, Chapter 160D. And so we'll have items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L are all related to these text amendments. Catherine from our Community Development Department is here if you have any questions relating to those. Catherine, do you have any comments about those agenda items?
Thank you, Mayor. These text amendments are all related to the general statutes changes for 160D that are required to be in effect by July 1st of this year.
I know everybody's had a chance to review these. At this time, do you have any questions? Because there will be public hearings and we will need to vote on them on Tuesday night. All right, I don't see any questions. So the next public hearing is a text amendment that clarifies the size requirements for accessory structures and sets a new threshold for requirement of special use permit. That's zoning docket KT 264. Catherine?
Thank you. This text amendment is a proposed revision to the threshold at which special use permits are required for accessory structures. We noticed that over the last 11 cases, going back to 2016, 9 would have been approved if we had adjusted the language in the ordinance slightly. So we feel that it's in the best interest of our citizens and our Board of Adjustment members, but also keeps in spirit with the ordinance. So it would require fewer permits, fewer permit fees, and the review time for the Board of Adjustment, while also keeping the scale appropriate to the parcels and the accessory structures.
Are there any questions? Okay, then we'll have our public session. We've got consideration of a resolution setting a public hearing for a voluntary annexation petition for property located off Witt Road containing 203.57 acres more or less. That's item 2B. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor and Board, this is property that we hope we have all of the information to the board in time to call for this voluntary annexation. This property is located off Macy Grove Road, between border of Macy Grove Road. I think, is it Bunker Hill Road, Catherine, to the north? And then Salem Parkway, 421, whatever you call it, on the other side. A lot of property owners involved in it, some heirs, so forth. So we're working to get all those folks in. If we don't get it in time for you all to have that information, we'll probably table it until the next meeting.
Okay, any questions? The next item 2C is another resolution setting the public hearing for a voluntary annexation petition. This is for properties off Heartland Drive containing .423 acres more or less. Mr. Swisher?
This is actually, Heartland Drive is down on Highway 66 as you go into the Sleep Inn Hotel. We do believe that we're going to ask the board to withdraw this item from the agenda. So it's a public right of way that is a road, but the road is currently not the town standards. So if we take it in, we're not sure that we won't be responsible for bringing it up to town standards. So we're still working on that. May ask you to withdraw that at the meeting on Tuesday.
Okay, the next is item 2D, consideration of utility extension agreements with Brookford Properties LLC, Vicky Mabe, Benny Marshall for properties located in the southeast quadrant of Kernersville Medical Parkway and Brookford Road. Mr. Swisher?
This is an agreement with property owners in that area, as it states there on Medical Parkway and Brookford Road, to run water and sewer up to their parcels. Part of that agreement states that in exchange for that water sewer, they'll annex those properties into the town limits. We discussed this probably 3 or 4 years ago about the properties along Medical Parkway. Basically from the creek back Highway 66, those properties are in the county and not in the town limits. So, you know, it would benefit the town for them to come into the town limits, and we've agreed that we'll do the water and sewer. If the board approves it, we'll do the water and sewer in exchange for them annexing in.
Okay, any questions? The next is item 2E, which relates to Lambeth Farm Lane and changing the speed limit to 20 miles per hour. Mr. Swisher?
This was the item that was discussed last month. I think you heard from the president of the HOA of McConnell. This is one of the one of the solutions we're going to try is to lower the speed limit there on Lambeth Farm. And I think also putting up some signs that say no parking here at the corner. So the board has to adopt this resolution or an ordinance rather in order to lower that speed limit from 25 to 20.
Okay, any questions? Okay. All right, the next is item 2F, which is an ordinance that would add certain streets to the list of stop required in all directions. Mr. Swisher?
We've gotten several calls about this intersection, about this area of Lake Drive. This is where the new subdivision was built. As you go down Lake Drive, the new subdivision there on the right that backs up to Branchwood. There's one road in and out of there, Bluffwood Court. When you pull up to the stop sign at Bluffwood Court, if you're sitting at Bluffwood Court and Lake Drive, if there's cars parked over on your left, which they're parked legally there, they're back far enough from the curb, you can't see what's coming down Lake Drive. No way really to remedy that. Chief Summers and I went out and looked at it. Dorn Maltby came out. I mean, you basically pull out into the middle of Lake Drive before you can see the car coming. So, you know, we're recommending to the board that we have a 3-way stop there. You'll have a stop as you go down Lake Drive, stop as you come up Lake Drive, and then of course a stop there at Bluffwood Court. That'll slow the traffic down. You'll be able to see you pulling out of Bluffwood Court. I mean, it's bad. If you've not been out there when a car is parked on Lake Drive, you can't see to get out. The complaint initially was about there's an enclosed trailer about 3 houses up. And the complaint was initially about the enclosed trailer. Well, the trailer was there that day. The trailer wasn't the problem. You couldn't even see to the trailer. Had the trailer not been there, you still would not have been able to see the cars coming down Lake Drive. So it's a pretty dangerous situation right now. So we think a 3-way stop will certainly help. If that doesn't work, we may have to, change ordinance for that section to back up how far back from the curb they have to park or something.
Any questions? The next item is G, which is consideration of the budget ordinance. Mr. Swisher?
This is the budget that was presented to the board. Had the public hearing on it last week, whenever it was, about the first of this month rather. Tax rate 55.9 cent. We have added at the request of the board members since this time, and I've talked to you all about it. A couple of you went over and seen it. It's a real-time crime center. We have added that to the police department budget. It was about $60,000 is what we added. We didn't really add that much money to it. Is what we did was we pulled some ammunition out of the regular budget, moved it over to forfeiture funds. So really it was about a $20,000 add. Didn't change anything. We appropriated a little more money out of fund balance, I think $10,000 out of fund balance, and then $5,000 more from sales and use tax and $5,000 more from building inspections. I can tell you that building inspections, it's still tracking high from all of our projections. Mike Horney told me today that they thought this year we'd hit about 710. We're already at 730, so which is about 200,000 more than we initially budgeted for this year. We budgeted less than that for next year, so we feel comfortable with the numbers we have budgeted. But the crime center, like I say, two of you have seen it. It's what it is. It's a system that allows businesses in town, if they have cameras, there's a box that you can purchase, depending on how many cameras you have on your system. You purchase a box for $200 to $600. You plug the cameras into that box, and that gives our police department access to view your cameras. Great system. Winston-Salem uses it, Sheriff's Department uses it, and it also, with those folks using it and us using it, we have access to all the cameras they have. So they've already got several businesses on board in the county that are located in Kernersville as well. They have locations here in Kernersville. So it'll just be a matter of getting those cameras logged into our system. They use it, both of them use it in very similar ways. It's not a system that you don't have to monitor it 24/7. You can if you choose to. It's what both of those agencies have chosen to do is they know where, peak crime will occur and basically what time it will occur. They monitor the cameras at that point in time. Winston-Salem in the last probably 3 months has already used it to solve 3 homicides and 1 kidnapping. I think we used it when Officer Hoole was shot. They sent out an alert. The other great thing about it is folks that have a Ring doorbell or a Nest doorbell, we can't see their footage, but they can register that doorbell with this system. And then we know who in that neighborhood has that type doorbell. And so it's what they do is if they have a crime in the neighborhood, say if somebody robbed a house in my neighborhood and I had a Ring doorbell that's registered with this system, they can send out an email to all of the folks in that neighborhood that have their doorbell registered, say, hey, we had a crime occur in your neighborhood at 2 a.m. If you've got any footage of a strange car or a strange person, can you send us that footage? You can look at it, download it, and send it to them. They use it that way. The other use, if you choose not to monitor it, which again, monitoring it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is a lot. It retains the footage for 5 days in most situations. Some situations maybe up to 8 days. So if we had a crime occur out here on Mountain Street and say we've got cameras on top of the Penix building, top of Richard Hedgecock's building, top of the bank, however it works, we can go back and pull that footage up that time, that day, and hopefully get some leads on it. So, it's a great product. The thing that the county has stressed and Winston has stressed, it doesn't give us the right to, you don't look in people's houses and you don't look in the business if they choose not to. There's one particular business that has their cameras registered with the Sheriff's Department. They gave them access to look inside their business. It's a convenience store. They're like, hey, we're fine with it. Somebody robs our convenience store, we want you to know. So it's a great system. As I say, I talked to you all about it. Everybody was fine with it. So I did add that to the budget. It did not change. The tax rate. Tax rate is still 55.9. It just changed the revenues, about $20,000. The other expenses were offset. So everything else is the same in the budget that was covered at the budget workshop and at the public hearing at the first of this month. Be glad to answer any questions. Again, if you come up and at this point we're kind of down to crunch time, but if you come up and say, hey, we want this in the budget instead of that, kind of need to know that before Tuesday night so we can have an ordinance prepared. We only have one prepared this year, which in previous years we've had 3 or 4, but we've got one. So if you come up and you say, we want this in the budget and it changes something, we can do it, but we're going to have to take a break while we go prepare that ordinance and bring it back to the board. So be glad to answer any questions any of you may have. If you'd like to go over and see the Real-Time Crime Center, let us know. We can probably get you over there. So what my plan is, if the board approves the budget, with that in the budget, we would do a demonstration with it when we have it up and running here, do a demonstration at one of the board meetings so that everybody can see it at the same time, ask any questions. But it's a great tool. So I'm glad we got it in. It came in at the last minute, but sometimes things, they just happen that way.
Thank you, Curtis, for the presentation. Thank you, Chief, for the work you and your department have put in on this. We appreciate it. All right. Any questions of Curtis? Any other proposals for the budget so that he knows? All right. It can be a really, really long night if some come up that night. The hard deadline is June 30th. So
you could continue the meeting and come back
8 a.m. the next day or 7:30.
The next day. Yeah, we'll get it done. We just need a little time.
Okay. All right. Okay, so there's budget amendment number 9, Mr. Swisher.
Not much in the budget amendment. As you can see, the only thing in there pertains to the Kernersville Creek Greenway. Had some expenses come up, $57,000. So we're appropriating fund balance appropriated to balance general fund with the expenditures, and it's to cover an expense associated with the Kernersville Creek Greenway.
All right, the next item is a lease agreement with the Kernersville Museum.
We don't have the lease agreement posted yet. John's working on that. I can give you, I think he went over it at the last meeting. Basically, I think it'll be a 1-year agreement with the museum. So what it does is, with them leasing the property from us, it's really not at that point, not restricted by our ordinance where it states you can't have alcohol on town property. They would be leasing it from us, so they would be allowed at that point in time to have alcohol at some of the events that they have over there. Everything else, I'm sure the lease probably $1 a year or whatever it might be. We have an agreement with the museum already that pretty much states, who takes care of the maintenance and things like that. So this would probably, I'm assuming, would refer to that agreement for those items.
Okay, any questions? All right, the next is the Local Government Commission application for financing contract for capital purchases and improvements.
Yeah, this is an application we're required to send it to the LGC. We're putting it on this agenda in anticipation if the board approves the budget. We have several items in there that has to go to the LGC. The police department range building, the sunshade replacements at Ivy Redmond, the park improvements at Civitan Park. They would all go to the LGC. And so that resolution would be authorizing us to solicit financing proposals and file the application with the LGC. They would be I think it'd be a 10-year financing arrangement on those.
Okay, there's a resolution for the notice of intent to reimburse. Is that for the LGC request?
So what that is, if we go through, we're required to do that. This is all the equipment that's listed in the budget. If we go in and buy some of that equipment, basically out of the fund balance before it comes in and go through the finance process, we just reimburse ourselves for it.
Okay, and then L is reimbursement for the purchase of a fire pumper truck, so that's the same.
Same thing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then M is intent to reimburse for the purchase of general improvements, so that would be the same as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, does anyone have any questions about items J, K, L, or M? All right, items N is a consideration of a contract with Edward L. Powell for legal services. O is consideration of a contract with John G. Wolf III for legal services. Mr. Swisher?
Yeah, these two, Ed's contract expires in June 30th of this year. I've talked to the board recommending extending his or renewing that contract for 1 year to run from July 1 to June 30th of 2022. The contract with John also expires June 30th of 2021. Ed and I have talked about it, talked with John. You know, when Ed came on, I told the board, said, you know, the plan would be bring one on for about 6 months before John leaves and see if we can get everything wrapped up. Ed and I have talked about it, and I've talked to John. I think I'm going to recommend, you know, extending John's contract out through the end of this year, but not through June of 2022. He's pretty much involved right now, pretty deeply involved in some things that we're doing that we're not going to have done by June 30th. I mean, there's just no way. We very well may not have them done by December, but I think we'll be to a point that we wouldn't need John at that time for 60 hours or 65 hours, whatever it is. My thought is, and of course it's up to the board, his contract runs out December 31st of 2021, and then it just go back on an as needed or as called basis at whatever rate that would be. So I'm recommending to the board a 1 year contract renewal for Ed starting July 1, and just extend John's under the current terms of his current contract, extend it through the end of this year. I've talked to John. He's fine with that. He just got back, so he's not going to be here tonight, but he'll be here Tuesday. If you got any questions, I mean, certainly he'll be glad to answer them, but I've talked to him about it. He's fine with it. And so I think that's probably the wise thing to do right now.
Okay, any questions? All right, that brings us to item P, which is consideration of a construction manager at risk contract with Samet Corporation for the Parks and Rec Event Center.
Yeah, this is a new rec center. As you all approved a couple of months ago, CPL to be the architect. And we're going to do this project as a construction manager at risk, which is a little bit different than what we've done in the past with some buildings in the past. The board's approved an architect. That architect has then designed the building, put the specs on it. We've bid it out to contractors, taken a low bid on the contractor, went through and built it. A lot of projects this size now are being done construction manager at risk. The way that works basically is you choose architect, and then you go through a request for qualifications for a construction manager at risk. You don't do it based on price, you do it on qualifications. We had, I think, Ernie, was it 4 or 5 firms? 4. We had 4 construction firms submit qualifications and bids or proposals basically to be our construction manager at risk. There was 3 or 4 of us from the town, 2 folks from the architect, went through and ranked these firms, and ended up we chose Samet Corporation. I think all of you are familiar with Samet. Pretty big contractor in this area. They've done the Trav Business Park locally. It was the partners in Samet that developed Trav Business Park. Got a broad range of experience on projects of all types. There were a couple of them in there that had done some similar projects, but really not. There was one out of Charlotte that had done a lot of similar projects, but Samet still ranked out high. So we're recommending Samet to be the construction manager at risk. You have in your packet their proposal, their contract, pages 11 through about 18 spell out the cost and what they charge. It's about 4.5% of the cost of the work. That's what their fee is. The only fee we'd be obligated to right now is in the pre-construction phase. It's what they do in the pre-construction. The architect kind of designs the building, how we need it to look. They work with the architect on that, and they price the building and tell us this is what it's going to be. I mean, it's a lot more to it than that. Their pre-construction costs are $151,000. So we're, if we choose them, we're obligated to that. The rest of it, you're not obligated to until we actually start the building. So we're recommending Samet. You have in there the contract. There's some exhibits and so forth, deal with insurance. And I think there's a couple more that's not loaded in there. Is what you have is actual meat of the contract. You don't have the exhibits and so forth. If you want to see those, I can get them for you. We can load them up. I think you've got 56 pages here. It's about 120 total. So we just didn't load all of them. But it's what you see is up through the signature pages. Everything after that's basically the addendums and the exhibits. Be glad to answer any questions. If you read through it and have anything, feel free to call me. Ed's read through it. He's approved it from the legal side. I've read through it. Ernie's read through it. We've sent it back, got some clarification from them. So, it's made sure. The biggest concern we had is that, they weren't pre-construction costs for them weren't kind of the same as a pre-construction cost for the architect. And then there was some construction manager at risk documentation. We wanted to make sure that there wasn't an overlap and we were paying both firms to do the same thing. So Ernie and I had a call yesterday with CPL to get clarification on that. And they are two distinct job duties that they're doing. So we feel comfortable with Samet. Think they'll do a good project. And, they're working on it now, trying to get the building designed. We will tell you that 55,000 square foot building is probably not going to come in at the price we initially thought. For any of you that's followed the cost of construction lately, it just ain't happening. So we're working with them to get it down to that price, but I may be coming back to you later on saying, hey, look, if you want the size building that we've went through the process and selected, it's going to cost more. So, don't know that for sure, but I just want to kind of let you know where we're at right now. When you're paying $80 a sheet for plywood, it's kind of hard to do it when you base your projections on $40 a sheet. So that's where we're at. Again, be glad to answer any questions. I know you probably haven't read through all of it, so if you get through it this weekend and have any questions, just shoot me an email or call me.
Are there any questions at this time? Is there anyone who wants any of these exhibits, addendums, that sort of thing at this time? All right. So we are to the consent agenda, which basically is approval of minutes. So proofread those carefully. Speakers from the floor, which we always do. Then the town manager's report. Is there anything you're planning to bring up that's not on the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And then matters to be presented at the meeting by the town attorney. Ed, are you aware of any matters that are planned for Tuesday?
No, Madam Mayor, we don't have any matters to bring before the board.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then matters to be presented by the mayor and board at the meeting, and then we would adjourn the meeting. All right, again, just a reminder, it's been really difficult because here we are in a briefing meeting and we're in the courtroom, which is where we normally have our regular meetings. So, this is just the overview of the budget of the overview of the meeting, but this meeting room is open for the meeting on Tuesday. We are streaming for people's convenience to watch from home. Given everything going on, if you feel ill, you can watch from home. If you feel like you'd like to say something at the meeting, please come here, or you can just come and watch if you want to. But we will need to vote on all of the matters that are public hearing items on Tuesday. There won't be like a delay in a later vote. And as we are aware, there's these text amendments we need to enact by the 30th. All right. So we are back to the briefing agenda. Matters to be presented tonight by the mayor and board of aldermen. Kenny, have you got anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to announce my daughter had breast cancer this week, and it all came out well, and she's back home, seems to be doing well, and I'm real thankful for that. I appreciate all the calls and prayers that we had for her, and she's doing good.
It's very, very good news. Chris? Bruce? Jed? All right. Let's see, Curtis?
No, ma'am.
Ed? All right. The next thing on the agenda is adjournment. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Alderman Thompson, a second by Alderman Cruz. All those in favor? It's unanimous, and this meeting is adjourned.